Good evening on this December 4th. Is it 4th? Nope, December 3rd, my bad, 2020. The time is 10:55 p.m. and I'm going to continue the reading I started either yesterday or the day before from The Win for Life. And I left off a little bit before the end of chapter 2. I'm just going to pick up from there. Going to jump right into it, so bear with me if you hear clicks and clacks in my voice. But here we go. Yes, Miss Lisa. When I went to the emergency the first time, I wouldn't go in because my boyfriend's mistress was there. I just didn't want her to see what Waldo had done to me. He doesn't hit her, and I just didn't want her having that over me, you know? I came back after I knew she was gone, and when I told the nurse what happened, the first thing she asked me was if I was pregnant. The whole 13 years I've been with Waldo, I never got pregnant. Not even once, I answered. Oh, did he kick you in the stomach? She asked, with a little concern in her face. No, Miss Lisa, nah. I remember he kicked me in my jaw, and I fell back and I hit the back of my head on the ground. Then he kicked me twice in the ribs. Then he kicked me again in the face. But then his best friend jumped in and broke it up, I told her. Oh, my Lord, she gasped. It's all right now, Miss Lisa. That's the last time for him. He's never going to touch me again, I said to her. Do you know what's worse? If I didn't win this money, I would have forgiven him. How crazy is that? I added, sick to my stomach of my own stupidity. Miss Lisa turned on the radio, then turned it low. You remind me of my older brother, God rest his soul. He died in Vietnam back in 1970. I miss him still. I will never get over it. I can't, no matter how much I try. He was just like you, naive, stubborn, stuck in his own world. He used to date girls that cheated on him, and no matter how much they hurt him, he'd forgive them. He believed them. I was young, barely a teenager, but I remember his smile. He was never too busy to talk to me or never above himself where he couldn't tell you his problems or what was wrong in his life. One thing about him was he was so stubborn, though. He set his mind on something, and no matter how pointless or dangerous it was, he just knew there was more to it. Oh, Charlie. Lisa had tears in her eyes thinking about her brother. I couldn't blame her. It's okay to let feelings of loved ones come out whenever they can. I was glad she trusted me enough to tell me. After a couple of minutes of silence, we talked about other things. She told me about her daughter, who's about to graduate from the University of Bridgeport. She talked about her nephew overseas in Afghanistan and her oldest son on drugs. We stopped for gas at Exit 56, one of those freeway gas stations. After using the restroom, I looked at myself in the mirror and saw how ugly I had let myself be. I saw how low I let Waldo take me, without consideration for myself. I washed my hands along with those thoughts of myself. I would never be that person, ever again. We arrived at the Lotto headquarters a little after 10 a.m. I was nervous but ready. As Lisa got out the car to light a cigarette, I realized that I needed her with me. Miss Lisa, no. What are you doing? I need you to come in with me. I'm already beat up. I don't need them thinking any less of me. You can be my stepmom, please, Miss Lisa. I begged her. She smiled and put her cigarette away. I never thought in a million years that I'd ever end up here, of all places, she said, and she walked with me into the Connecticut Lottery headquarters. And that is the end of chapter 2. We're going to jump right into chapter 3. Waldo walked out onto the front porch and lit a cigarette. Little Dot got into a cab and it drove away. As soon as it reached the corner, he pulled out his cell phone and called Ia, but she didn't answer. Waldo was catching feelings for Dot, and he didn't want to. He thought more and more of her and less of Ia. The problem with that was his feelings were too deep for Ia to think any less of her than he already did. How could he like Little Dot? At least 3 of his homies had smashed that he knew of. One of them had a video of it on his phone. When he looked toward the grass to ditch his cigarette, he saw the unopened can of iced tea and the bag of chips. And right next to that, he saw the alcohol bottle and the blood. The fuck, Waldo, he said to himself. He really had forgotten what he did to Ia the other night. The fuck you do that for, he snapped, mad at himself. He stormed toward the front door, frantically calling Ia. She had to pick up now. He really meant it. His call went straight to voicemail. She didn't even have the phone on. He got scared. He called Hugo. Hugo didn't pick up right away. It took about 6 rings for him to answer. Hey, yo, Hugo, where's Ia? He asked frantically. Are you fucking serious, Waldo? You don't remember what you did to her? He asked quite seriously. I know she was with you. Where's my girl at? Hugo choked on his own spit. He couldn't believe what he just heard. Let me get this straight. You fuck her up over some shit she didn't do. She probably left your ass, Hugo stated, breaking up some trees on his lap. I fucked up, Hugo. I fucked up, alright? But she don't fucking get it. I was pissed off. I was fucking rushing back here to pick her up in the first place. She the only one that was hounding me and talking about, take me to the movies, take me to the movies. Fuck, he yelled, frustrated with himself. And what was you doing that you had to rush? What was you doing that you had to rush? You was probably fucking around with Dot. Fucking up like you always do. You the stupidest nigga I know. Hugo cracked the blunt and emptied the guts into a plastic bag. Yo, Hugo, listen to me. Where's Ia? He pronounced every syllable exaggeratively. I dropped her at the hospital like 4 this morning, after we dropped off Eddie at his pop's on Long Island. What's fucked up was that little Dot was there last night with her moms. And you know Ia wouldn't go in because she fucking knew. Because she know you fucking with Dot and she didn't want her to see what you did to her. How fucked up is that? Hugo dumped the trees into the blunt and rolled it up. He licked the edges of the paper to seal it, then placed it behind his ear. I'll be there in 2 minutes. Hold on. When Hugo pulled up, Waldo was bent in front of his car, staring at the dent. He got into the car with Hugo and they pulled off. She can't be at the hospital still, can she? Hugo asked, as they took a right down Stillwater, heading towards West Avenue. Waldo blew his breath and put his face in his hands. I don't know why I did that. What the did I do that for? Hugo pulled over and called Stanford Hospital. After he Googled the number, after he talked to the ER, he hung up. Yo, they said they released her like 10 a.m. yesterday morning, Hugo told him. I know she's not there. I talked to her yesterday afternoon. Hugo almost dropped his blunt. What the fuck you asking me where she is if you talked to her yesterday, Waldo? Are you retarded? Hugo asked as he hit the blunt. Waldo pouted his lips, then pulled out his phone. She texted me yesterday from the library. That's where she usually go when we fight and shit. Waldo handed Hugo his phone so he could see the text between them. He choked on his toke when he saw what Ia said to him. Hey, yo, she caught you with Dot and she didn't bust up your Yo, Ia is a saint. I don't know not one girl that put up with the crazy shit you put that girl through. Wait. Hugo read a little further. Yo, you threw her shit out on the street? The way Hugo twisted his head to look at Waldo, he almost looked possessed. Waldo took his phone back from Hugo. I always throw her shit out, but she never freaking left before. She usually just start crying and shit. Hugo shook his head. She ain't crying now. You don't give her shit, and you tell her to leave you, and now you don't know where she is. Yo, after what you did to her, you better hope she come out, if she come around at all. Give her some time to herself. Damn, Waldo, you fucked her up. Hugo pulled off, and he and Waldo smoked the blunt. Waldo took pull after pull, and every time the smoke hit his lungs, he spiraled a little deeper, a little more out of control. Hugo drove through Southwood Village looking for his cousin Abe. He pulled up at his aunt's house, but she said he was out with Lasso. Waldo had gotten so dark that he didn't even respond to Hugo's aunt when she waved at him. Waldo flipped through his phone looking at pictures of Ia he took. He didn't miss her in those pictures. He had some kind of hate for her that he couldn't explain, but he never hated her enough to break up with her or throw her out of the house like he did yesterday. He turned his phone off and made himself give Ia some space. He made himself think about other things. Hugo texted Abe. He was at Lasso's crib on the south end by the train station. Hugo drove over there and picked up his cousin in Lasso. Lasso was a crazy-ass nigga. Not violent or dangerous, but crazy. All the screws wasn't there. He did evil shit. Little evil shit to animals and little girls and shit. Hugo didn't know why Abe hung out with him. Birds of a feather, he thought, and said no more of it. And the four of them drove around smoking. They headed right back over to Stillwater to Julio's. Abe and Lasso ran in to buy beers, blunts, and chips. They got tired of driving around and burning gas. They parked in front of Waldo's behind his car. When Abe got out and saw Waldo's car, he shook his head. Damn, what happened? Hugo jumped in front of Abe. Shut up, yo. Hugo put his finger on his lips. Abe tilted his head to the side and said no more of it. They sat on the porch and drank, drawing Mr. Rodriguez to his window. Hey, Waldo, fellas, can you please keep it down? My wife is asleep, he asked them. Waldo waved his hand and Mr. Rodriguez went back inside. They went upstairs and sat on the one couch they had in the living room. Hugo grabbed the two fold-up chairs out of the kitchen, and they sat in front of Ia's TV and watched horror movies on DVD. They rolled 4 blunts, and Hugo saw his supply was getting low. He called Scratch to buy another half ounce, Within minutes, Hugo and Abe had bounced, leaving Waldo with Lasso watching Chainsaw Massacre. When they got outside, Abe asked Hugo what happened to Waldo's car. Hugo went into it. Primo. Waldo was supposed to take Ia to the movies the other night, and somehow he got caught up with Dot and tried to rush back to get Ia, and he got into an accident. Then, to make shit worse, he came back home and beat the living dog shit out of Ia because it was her fault that he had to rush to come get her. If I didn't stop him when I did, he would have killed her. I heard that he put his hands on her, but I didn't know he was beating her like that, Abe added. She didn't call the cops, Abe asked. Nope. Hugo answered. The next day, or yesterday, she caught him cheating on her, and they argued. He kicked her out, and he hasn't seen her since. Abe crossed his arms and leaned back on a chair. There was nothing about Ia to him that would make him do to her what Waldo did. About a minute later, Hugo got a call from Eddie inviting him to a beach party tonight near Jones Beach. He also told him to bring as many of his boys as he could. There's mad girls, and he's the only dude. And because it's outside in the sand, there was no dress code. Abe, if you up for it, Eddie invited us to a beach party out on Long Island. Mad girls, no guys tonight. Abe stroked his chin and laughed. Hugo called Waldo and Lasso, told him to meet him downstairs. After they got to the crib, Hugo tried to lift Waldo's spirits up. All right, listen, girls, no dudes on the beach at night. What do you say? Waldo was already smiling. You can't beat a dog for trying. Hell yeah, where them shorties at? Lasso had his tongue stuck out, spanking the air like it was a woman's behind. In the small celebration ensued, Hugo stopped in the middle. Smoke money or gas money? What's it gonna be? He held out his hand. You gotta pay to play. Abe pulled the 50 out of his pocket and handed it to Hugo. Lasso and Waldo both pulled out 20s and handed them over. Hell yeah, motherfuckers with money. Now we can go somewhere. The four of them piled into Hugo's Acura and headed toward the Shell on West Avenue in Greenheart. Hugo filled his tank, and the four of them were off on a 2-hour ride to Long Island, New York. And that is the end of chapter 3. And we're going to jump right into chapter 4. And we are at 12 minutes and 35 seconds. Ia sat in the back seat of the cab with the door open while Lisa smoked. Staring at the check like a sniper at a high-priced target, Ia rubbed her fingers like claws gripping a figure fortune. Her problems melting with every zero, but a part of her woke up. She could feel that some of the money couldn't be. She could feel that some of her misery couldn't be cured with money, and how would she deal with that? Lisa finished her cigarette and got back into the car. As she pulled out of the Connecticut Lotto headquarters, she felt better. Proof that she wasn't lying to her, though she saw the check herself when the Lotto people wrote it out to her. What a nice woman at the Lotto office, that Mrs. Gresson. What she told her should have been broadcasted to the world. Just because you won doesn't mean you can't lose. God is the only cure for money. See to him always. The drive back from the Lotto headquarters was impossibly beautiful, just bright. I became one of those people who cared about everything. I saw someone pulled over on the shoulder, and I wanted to help them. A police officer had pulled over a motorist, and I felt scared for them, saying things like, you shouldn't have broken the law. The police are here to protect and serve. You know those feelings you only see in movies with families who live that secure, perfect life. Where to, honey? Miss Lisa asked. I leaned my head against the seat and just looked at her. She was an honest woman, a real lifesaver. To her bank, Miss Lisa. Though which one I do not know, I answered. Miss Lisa nodded her head and kept driving. I'm about to enter the financial world on golden wings. Which bank I represented carried weight now. No more local check cashing places. Well, I use Chase. Been with them for over 20 years. Wouldn't hurt to find out if they're good for you. Been with them for over 20 years. Wouldn't hurt to find out if they're good for you, Lisa suggested. I tried to Google Chase on my phone, but couldn't get any reception. I also saw that Waldo had called more than 20 times and texted me about 10. I had a choice now, which blew my mind completely. It was like choosing whether or not... Oh, let's see. I done lost. Got caught on the page. All right, here we go. To have cheese on my hamburger. That's how free I felt. I decided not to call him back. Not calling Waldo wasn't the only decision I made. I also called my mom.